Good afternoon and welcome to a very special interview show of The Prode. How difficult is the transition from traditional sources of energy to green energy? How practical is it to achieve the net zero carbon emission target? What will be the impact of global supply chain disruption on the climate goals? To talk about all this and much more about green energy and its future, I'm joined by a very special and distinguished guest from Norway, Mr. Erik Solheim. Erik is a Norwegian diplomat who has served as Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme. He has also served as the Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Minister for Environment and International Development of Norway. Also, I would like to mention that he is a great friend of India and very popular among the environment enthusiasts in India. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. A very warm welcome to the show, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on your show. Thanks for your kind words.
Sir, I would like to begin the discussion by asking how was your recent India tour and what are your observations of India's efforts to achieve its climate goals?
I take a very optimistic view because I think India has changed so much. I mean, the old debate in India was very simple. That was, do we want to develop or do we want to take care of the planet? And then nearly all Indians wanted to develop because there are still many poor people in India. And even anyone also wanted a more decent, more prosperous life. So the focus was always on development. But that's so much the discussion of the 20th century, because at that time, if you wanted to develop, you needed to burn coal, you needed to burn oil and gas. However, now the fast development, uplifting of people, bringing everyone up to the middle class, it can happen on the basis of green technologies and green energy. So there is no choice between economy and environment. It's yes, thank you. We want both environment and economy.
Yes, sir. So how practical is it to achieve like net zero carbon emission goals for Western countries as well as for Eastern powers like India and China?
Complete net zero need to be based on two factors. First, you need to reduce all emissions as much as possible with the transfer from coal and oil and gas into solar, wind, green hydrogen, and all the amazing new technologies which are already there. And by the way, are now the cheapest sources of energy. Solar energy in India is the cheapest energy which has ever existed on planet Earth, much cheaper than coal. But secondly, to get to complete zero, we also need to do abating, use abating technologies like tree planting, mangrove restoration, and many other ways of greening the planet. But through this combination of going fast into renewables and do greening of the planet, we can achieve net zero.
Yes, sir. So how difficult is the transition from traditional sources of energy for countries like India and China, which have like a huge dependence on these sources?
Yeah, the main issue now is not the direction, because both India and China is fast moving in the good green direction, but it's the urgency. We need to speed up. It needs to happen even faster. The problems are not technical and they're not really economical either. I mean, the green technologies are the cheapest and they're all available, but there are political difficulties in all nations. You need to make sure that those groups in society who will not benefit immediately from the transition, that they are taken care of, so that we don't get a lot of resistance from voters or from dissatisfied people. I mean, if you look to India as an example, of course, if you take the perspective from Tamil Nadu, one of the most developed Indian states, there is enormous benefits from going green. If you are in, say, Jharkhand, which is a historically very coal-dependent province, you may not be extremely happy to see the jobs go to Chennai or to Hyderabad or Bangalore or the most developed cities in the south. So you need to make sure the energy transition is happening in a fair way, bringing everyone on board, having compensating measures, retraining of people, investing in those communities who will not immediately benefit. Otherwise, you will get it wrong. But the difficulty is political rather than economical and technological. And I'm very certain that Prime Minister Modi, but of course, Chinese leaders like Xi Jinping or Joe Biden in the US, they're all very much aware of this challenge.
Yes, sir. So we all know that semiconductors are considered as the heartbeat of electric vehicles. Do you think that the current shortage of semiconductors will affect the climate goals, or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, there are clearly challenges here, and some of the global value chains has been disrupted by COVID. Now the war in Ukraine may create new difficulties, but overall also the ingenuity and the innovative spirit of people is so high. So I'm confident that we will see very fast also solutions coming to this, and those nations who import numerous critical items for the development, say China, they will also come up with solutions to the supply chain issues.
Yeah. Now coming to the supply chain crisis, which we are seeing, what according to you will be the impact of global supply chain disruption on the climate goals of different countries?
It's too early to tell. It depends on the politics. For this reason, it's very, very important that we work together in the world. There is an old saying from the old Vedas, the whole world is one family. That's the approach we should apply. There are unfortunately some circles, in particular in the United States of America, who's making the fantasy that we can split the world into one American-led and one Chinese-led sphere. That's a recipe for disaster. Because if we work together, we can resolve all these value chain, supply chain issues. If we allow ourselves to work in contradiction to each other, to fight each other, it will be much, much harder. So let's take the wisdom of the Vedas, the whole world is one family.
Yes, sir. Now coming to the idea of one sun, one world, and one grid, which will be the first of its kind, an international network of global interconnected solar power grids. So how do you see this idea and how beneficial this idea will be in order to bring a change?
I think it's a very beneficial idea. I mean, for sure, the solar energy is the most important energy for the future. It will also be used in different forms. So you will have solar energy from rooftops, from parking lots, from small installations in villages. You will have big-scale solar factories like we now see coming up in Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan or Tamil Nadu in India. And added to all this, of course, we will see solar energy transform into green hydrogen, because you can use solar directly into into normal family cars, to two-wheelers, three-wheelers. I mean, I think all personal mobility will basically be based on solar. But for aviation, for shipping, for heavy trucks, it's it's difficult to fuel with electricity, and the same applies to steel and fertilizer in a number of industries. So then you will see solar being transformed into green hydrogen and used for these purposes. As an example, I mean, Australia, which has enormous land mass with very few people, enormous deserts, no one is living there, is very well fit for setting up numerous windmills, numerous solar panels, which can then produce green hydrogen, and that green hydrogen can be exported to Korea, to Europe, and other parts of the world. In China, you will see exactly the same green hydrogen being produced in Mongolia or desert areas, and then taken to the more industrialized and more populated parts of China.
Yeah, you talked about India's development in the field of solar energy. So how do you rate India going in the field of solar energy? Do you think that India has achieved, a normal stage?
Absolutely, I see a lot of progress, and I give a lot of credit to Prime Minister Modi for spearheading this. I mean, he formed with President Macron of France, the International Solar Alliance, and he has been a constant driver of the solar revolution in India. By the way, India has the first all-solar rail station in the world in Assam. It has the first all-solar airport in the world in Kochi in Kerala. New Delhi Metro, which is one of the biggest metro systems in the world now, will soon be powered by solar from the state of Madhya Pradesh. So you see a lot of positive developments happening in India on solar, both on small scale, village-based rooftop solar, and these huge solar factories which can power entire cities. And when Prime Minister Modi launched the Green Hydrogen Mission for India very recently, two of the richest tycoons in Indian business, Mr. Ambani in Mumbai and Mr. Adani in Ahmedabad put tens of billions of dollars on the table for green hydrogen in India. So yes, indeed, India is moving fast. Very soon, India will be the second biggest solar nation in the world, next to China.
Yeah. So another very talked about term nowadays is corporate sustainability, especially in terms of environment. So how do you rate this idea and how successful it has been in achieving the sustainable development goals throughout the world, especially if we see the pollution and environment part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, but I think the answer is very simple. Business is now well ahead of politics in most parts of the world. The politicians are lagging behind the business leaders, and that's because the business leaders see the climate and environment as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for new jobs, it's an opportunity for profit, opportunity to create prosperity and to get markets. And you see some of the most amazing companies in the world leading the charge. I mean, Microsoft in the United States they have promised to be carbon neutral by 2030. Added, they have promised to compensate for all emissions in the history of the company. And added to all that, they promised to be a zero plastic company. The Swedish furniture giant IKEA, they have promised to be an absolute world leader in a circular economy. To buy a product from IKEA, you'll be able to bring it back and they will take care of the recycling of the product. And the biggest paper and pulp company in the world, which is April, Indonesian company, they have promised that there will be absolutely zero deforestation from their products, and added that they will conserve an area in Indonesia and Sumatra the same size as the plantation which they use for the paper and pulp machines. So these are just three examples: Microsoft, IKEA, and April. But all over the world, business is ahead, not behind politics.
Yes, sir. I would like to conclude the discussion by asking that how do you see the developments in the field of green energy around the globe, and what does the future holds for us?
I think we are in the very beginning of the great fourth industrial revolution. I mean, we have three big industrial revolutions before us in history. First in the United Kingdom in the late 18th century, then in the United States with the railroads, then the internet revolution in the 1990s, and now we have the fourth industrial revolution. There are three main areas. It's the energy revolution, the biotechnology revolution, and the digital revolution. All this comes together because the enormous revolution in the digital area makes it much cheaper, much easier to move ahead with the green revolution, because you can utilize equipment much better. Artificial intelligence will add to this. So I'm sure we will see a very, very fast development of the green energies. If you look to the nations which are in the forefront, they move very, very fast. In my nation, Norway, when we launched a good policy for electrical vehicles, we very fast went to nearly 100% of the new cars sold are now electric. Last year it was 80%, but this year it will approach 100%. No one wants an old-fashioned gasoline car, when the new electric cars are much more spectacular, much better performing, much cheaper over a 10-year period, and of course much better for the environment. So when we pass critical thresholds, the revolution happens very, very fast.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable thoughts on this important topic. I hope that we will achieve all our climate goals and make this world a better place to live in soon. Thank you so much once again for your time, and it was a pleasure hosting you on The Prode.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.